Well, I think today we're going to talk about the Archdruid a little bit, but I also wanted to say I met I'm always about this Dayton ambassador, so we're going to tie to yesterday. I ran into some Stanford Cardinal at the coffee shop today who was practicing for her physics. She graduated from Ohio State, went to Oakwood, I don't even know her name, didn't get her name, and she went to Ohio State, went to Stanford, got a master's degree in physics, and now he's going to go for a PhD and study particles. Now, where do you think she's going to end up studying particles?
MIT?
Europe, of course.
Europe.
Because they got the new...
Yeah, the Super Collider.
Super Collider. Anyway, I thought that was a beautiful thing. Of course, she didn't stay here for New Year's Eve. She went back to Columbus, and that's the way it is. Of course, it's the same old story. But it was beautiful that she did come out of Oakwood and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, we do export quite a bit of talent outside the world now. If only we could charge like a tariff.
Well, yes. Well, wasn't that... see, I'm not allowed to bring that up. You used to have to go back to your own home to register and pay taxes. Maybe that's what we should have.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, the Archdruid. You weren't going to talk about him today?
Archdruid. I thought that was a really interesting post. And Druids, ancient order of, have been around for quite a long time. And this guy lives in Maryland, and he writes very interesting stuff.
He was a beautiful written. I've been reading him for quite some time. I passed it on to David today. It was an article about kind of putting together where we were going and then how to address that based on a tax scheme.
And this isn't one of these stupid things like the fair tax or value-added tax or any kind of tax scheme like we're used to seeing. And, it's funny. I think some of the people who got all excited about things like the fair tax would get even more excited about this because it actually makes sense.
Yeah, because really you're wiping out all the taxes for labor.
Yeah.
Any tax where you've earned it, there's a resource tax, right? That's the way I understood it.
Well, he separates, basically there are three economies. And each one has different finite resources and,
there was the extractive resource economy.
There was the natural economy, extractive resources, in other words, pulling out minerals from the earth, pulling out water.
Non-renewable, certainly.
Non-renewable or impact on. So, a tailpipe tax.
Right.
So there's that natural part. And that he wants to tax a lot because that's us taking something that is not renewable. So if you use renewable things, you don't have to pay a tax. But if you're using primary, you got to pay. The secondary market, which is the largest one, which is really interesting. He says, that's our unlimited resource. It's human capital.
And that wouldn't be taxed.
And he says, stop taxing that. Because the more people that are working, the more people that are doing things, the more, that money moves, the better off the economy is for everybody. And the third market, this is the one that there's going to be the big resistance from, is the money markets. Finance, insurance,
making
real
money
estate,
off money.
Making money off of money. And that doesn't add anything to the general equation. It just enriches those at the top. And he made a case and said that, when the taxes in the U.S. in the 50s were running 2/3 on the highest income earners, we actually had the highest level of prosperity amongst all.
That's true. We had the golden age of the middle class,
and
where
it's been all downhill since then.
And most people would agree with that. Most of the people that argue about education, having enough time for your children, that. Now, of course, we do have 3,000 square foot houses as the norm. So
we quote traded up, but what we've done is used more of those primary resources. And continue to use more of them as we've sprawled out.
We actually pulled credit forward. We lived a pipe dream. Somebody lent us money for something that was really unsustainable.
And this isn't just in terms of the conversations we're having now.
Yeah, I thought it was
finance and stuff. This is overall living on borrowed futures.
Right. And then there was a couple of people that kind of commented or wanted to question about how we might set up in other words, I like this tax, but to dovetail on top of that, some people asked about, it would be nice, your idea of having a local-based kind of stock market. We would invest in, what's good for this community. Like, I consider Dayton Power and Light a provider of energy, a much more important thing for everyday people than I would a roadway system per se. So
Yeah.
I find it weird that we are forced to own roadways and take care of those, but
we don't own our
don't own
utilities.
our own power generation system.
Right.
So I think in the in future
We're
installments,
very lucky they don't just grab us by the nuts sometime and yank it the way the petroleum industry did.
well,
Which
because
isn't local at all.
There isn't any PUCO on local, and yes, energy and
PUCO.
electric Public Utilities
Commission of Ohio. PUCO. I've never heard it said that way. I've always heard it PUCO.
Well, my dad used to work for Damn Poor Living, Dayton Power and Light. So I understand where these, kind of the generation and how it all came around. So I think we'll talk about that in future things. But if you can, take a look at the Arch Druid report.
And read it, and then read the comments. And we'll have some information on the post with the links and everything else. And we'd like to hear your feedback. But one of the things that I've started becoming more acutely aware of as this housing crisis, and we have people's houses underwater, and we see that the tax revenues are decreasing and everything. And I think about it. Well, when you fix up your house, they raise the cost, they raise the tax rate, and that's not really in the community's best interest. We want people to take care of the homes. We don't want them to fall into disrepair. And by fixing them up and boosting the property tax, we're actually providing a disincentive to reinvestment and renewal.
Well, we can talk about that because I think where we pulled the production forward 30 years in that, so did the local communities. They invested based on that 30-year time horizon. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have fountains blowing water up out of the middle of the river.
Right. So all these policies together have caused us a lot of problems, but we're not addressing the fundamental problems.
I don't disagree.
We like talking about fundamental problems instead of stupid stuff.
Let's talk about the forest and not the tree.
Exactly. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.